Hello, my name is Al Stash for VPSN, the Villa Park Sports Network. This time I have a special report from a very unique location in Villa Park, Illinois, the Windy City Curling Club. Located just under 20 miles straight west of Chicago, this facility is one of only 4 curling clubs in northern Illinois. And curling is a sport we see typically during the Winter Olympics on sports television networks. So it is a rare and great opportunity for me to highlight the Windy City Curling Club and hopefully introduce many of you to curling. To get started, let me take a minute to explain the sport of curling.
Curling is played on a sheet of ice manicured in a special way. The object of the game is to throw by sliding on the ice 42-pound granite stones with a handle attached to the top at a target at the opposite end of the sheet over 100 feet away. The target looks like a bullseye and is 12 feet in diameter, but it's called the house. The inner circles in the house are 8 feet and 4 feet across, with the very center only 1 foot across. That center is called the button. When throwing the stone, each curler will begin with their feet on the hack, which is a fixed block in the ice to use to push off of on the ice sheet. The curler will slide the stone forward and release the stone before crossing a line 21 feet from the center of the house. The line is called a hog line. The stone continues towards the house on the opposite end of the sheet, being influenced by 2 teammates using a broom rapidly swept near the stone on the ice. Each team alternately throws a stone from the same end of the sheet until 16 stones have been played. Points are awarded for every stone that rests within the house and is closer to the center button than any of the opponent's stones.
Now that we have the basic curling jargon and rules explained, it's time to share with you a tournament championship that was held here at Windy City Curling in February of 2023. A total of 24 teams and 96 curlers gathered for what they called a Bonspiel. Many of the curlers come from clubs around the United States and a couple from Canada as well. After 3 days of round robin and preliminary sessions, 2 teams have come to play for the championship. So let's meet the curlers.
Tuck and Roll will be the red team today, with John Epping as the skip and captain. Kyle Markham will be third. Mel Schenko will be first and lead. Jim Schneider at second. And the other team is the Beaver Tail Boys, the yellow team. Daniel Russell will be second. Sean Perry third. Matthew Sarek, skip and captain. And Ian Trimble first lead.
And we are ready to begin.
We are at the Windy City Curling Club, and Ian Trimble from the Beaver Tail Boys is the first to throw the stone down the sheet. Sean Perry and Daniel Russell, trying to influence the stone as it comes closer to the house on the opposite end. And there Matthew Sarek is the team captain. And it is in play and is a guard, meaning it is going to be more difficult to go around to get to the center for the next thrower, who is Mel Schenka, the first or lead for the red team. Influencing the stone is Kyle Markham and Jim Schneider. And they have elected to go to the left end and come around to the middle. John Epping, the skip, seeing the stone as another guard. He liked that throw, so now we go back to the Beaver Tail boys, and Ian Trimble will throw his second stone. His feet are on the hack at the very end of the sheet, and here we see he has to release before that line, which he did. And getting instructions from Matt Sarek, the yellow team stone looks like it may end up in the house, as it does, and it looks like it will stay there. Great throw. So now Mel Schenka for the red team will attempt to manipulate her stone to either move or be closer to the center of the house, or that bullseye at the opposite end. Mel has an early release much farther away from the hog line. And there you see Kyle Markham doing all the sweeping. The stone coming in pretty heavy, looking to knock out the yellow stone, and it did. So that was a great throw. And now some new throwers will come up for the Beaver Tail boys. This will be Daniel Russell, the second for the Beaver Tail boys. And as you can see, Daniel holds the stone handle quite a bit longer. And some pretty vigorous sweeping there going with Sean Perry and Ian Trimble. Notice they cannot touch any of the other stones, and they're able to knock away the red team's stone and yet keep theirs within the 4-foot ring. So at this point they would have 1 point, but there's plenty more stones to throw. You see John Epping, the skip, leaving a target for the next thrower, who is Jim Schneider, the second for the red team. And this time Mel Schenka is doing all the sweeping. A little bit of help from Kyle Markham. And they're going on the right side to knock away the yellow stone, which they have, and simply replaced it with their own. So a good throw by Jim Schneider. And then we'll go back to the yellow team. The second stone for Daniel Russell. And it looks like he's aiming for the last stone thrown by the red team. And it looks like he will be successful. And there it is. Almost a duplicate of the previous stone thrown by the red team. The yellow team replaces it again. So we'll try that again with skip John Epping, now pointing out the place for Jim Schneider to throw his second stone. A lot of different sweeping going on based upon the speed, the direction, and what they want the stone to do. And we'll do the same thing again. Only this time, you notice the red stone hit the side border, and that makes it out of play, so it's moved back to the back line. And the Beaver Tail boys, Matthew Sarek, is now showing Sean Perry a target for his first stone of this end. He lines it up. And pushing off, he will try to be more specific on where he places his stone. Notice no sweeping yet, so they're happy with the direction and the speed. Sweeping would accommodate changes in both of those. And it looks like the stone will pass completely through. You notice John Epping, the opponent, is able to sweep and help the stone pass out of the house once it crosses the middle line that crosses through the center or the middle of the house. And here's the first stone for Kyle Markham, the third on the red team. Still no sweeping yet, so they're happy with the position and the speed, and it looks like they're just going to let it go because this is a great shot, great throw, but it goes all the way through. So a little bit heavy on the throw of the stone by Kyle. That'll bring us back to, I believe, Sean Perry for his second stone, and it is. And he lines up again with his arms stretched out. His target on the opposite end, it's about 100 feet once they release the stone, coming up to that hog line you see, away to get to that target. And of course they have to release the stone before that line. Now we're getting some sweeping. More instructions coming, but they're happy with the direction and the speed, I believe. And that stone also, with a little help, goes out behind the house, so it will be removed from play. So far, no one is in the house. And we go to the second stone for Kyle Markham. Pretty much has an open house, so it's all about touch. How do I get that stone exactly where they need it? Through the middle of those two, yet standing or ending up within the house. And it looks like this one will. A little bit of extra speed attempted with Jim Schneider sweeping in front of that stone. But there is a stone now in the house, and the Beaver Tail boys are discussing how the next throw will happen. You see Sean Perry and Matthew Sarek, Sean the third and Matthew Sarek the skip or the captain. Captains are usually the ones that do the strategy for every stone, where they want it, the direction, and how they defend other stones within the house. So quite a discussion here. Normally in a tournament there is a tracking of the talking time that we're experiencing and watching right now, but it's usually not a problem. So Matthew Sarek will go back to the other side, and Sean Perry will take his place, leaving the target. Matthew Sarek is the fourth thrower for the Beaver Tail boys. He'll have two stones. This is his first. And he is the one that does, as I mentioned, the strategy for their team. Usually the most experienced player, but each of the sequence of throwers has a special job, and this one is to decide whether or not you're going to score or block away any stones that are in play for the opposing team. And it looks like what he was attempting to do was knock away the red stone, and he just missed by an inch or two. So that's good for the red team. And here we see now John Epping, the skip, coming back down the sheet to the opposite side. and Kyle Markham will leave the target for their team captain, John Epping, to make his first throw. Beyond John, behind him, you see a crowd of people. They're in the warm room where the curling actually takes place. Is about 46 degrees, and the warm room is about 70 degrees. So there's a glass between them, and I can tell you that it's a big difference. Now we have John Epping, the skip's first throw, and you see a very light touch. Not much sweeping going on yet. That stone is going right down the center line, and looks like it may come to a stop. Once it gets past the middle, they can try to manipulate, the opposing team can try to manipulate the stone to go out the back, but it did not cross the middle, so they could not do anything about it. So now 2 red stones are in the house for the red team. And once again, Sean Perry will leave the target for his skip and captain, Matthew Sarek, to throw his second stone. So here is the second and final stone for the Beavertail boys. Matthew Sarek, their captain. Throwing it down, he'll be looking to knock one of the red stones or both away from the house. And that did accomplish one thing, and that is it moved one of the red away and left the yellow within range to be closest to the center. But as you can see, John Epping is now ready to throw what's called the last stone or hammer stone, the 16th stone of the end or inning, as you might experience in baseball. So John will make every effort to remove that yellow stone and leave his stone within the house, and that would score them 2 points for this end. Jim Schneider and Mel Schenka will be doing the sweeping for this stone. And it looks like he's going right down the middle. It's a hard throw. And it leaves 2 stones within the house. You see the one being moved by Kyle Markham and the one that John Epping just threw. So that will give the red team 2 points. Red team's name is Tuck and Roll, and they score 2 points, so they lead 2-0 in this first end. We'll be right back. Beginning the second end will be Mel Schenka from Tuck and Roll for the first throw. Mel is the first or lead for her red team, and her throw is now down the sheet. Jim Schneider and Kyle Markham, the second and third, will be attempting to manipulate the stone, and this one goes into the house inside the 4-foot ring. So Matthew Sarek, the skip for the Beavertail boys, will now provide a target for Ian Tremble, the first thrower, and his first stone. Ian releases just before the hog line. And his teammates, Daniel Russell and Sean Perry, are just letting the stone go as it's almost right down the center line, but it looks like it will pass out the back, and it does, so that stone will be out of play. So we go back to Mel Schenka for Tuck and Roll for her second throw of this end. John Epping, the skip, giving her a target on the opposite end, and here's the throw by Mel. Much earlier release than most of the players and throwers in this game. Jim Schneider doing a lot of the sweeping right now. Not much sweeping going on. This stone is coming close to the house and looks like it will enter the house at a very good spot. John Epping giving the high broom signal, meaning thank you, that's a good throw, to Mel on the opposite end. So now the Beaver Tail boys will attempt to deal with two stones back to back inside the house. You can't knock them both out, so you have to decide what's the best strategy at this point. Ian Trumbull looks ready. And here we go. He's throwing quite a heavy stone, lots of speed on that. Giving a little bit more speed with the sweep by Sean Perry. And that one goes out the back without hitting. So the tuck and roll team will get another attempt with two stones inside the house. And this time the throw will be by Jim Schneider, the second. He'll be looking to not move the stones that are already in the house, but add to the capabilities that they have to score points. He may be attempting to put a blocker in front of those two stones, which looks like that's exactly what he's going to do. As long as it crosses that line you just saw it cross, that hog line, the stone is in place. So it is right dead center on the first two stones. So a great throw by Jim Schneider. It's a blocker inside the house. So now the Beaver Tail boys really need to start moving those stones away. And they'll be throwing a hard stone right dead center on those three stones to move them as far away as they can with enough strength and power of that 42-pound stone of granite now racing down the ice. And it hits it at a little bit of an angle, so one stone is moved out. The yellow stone that they used to throw just then did not hit the side, so that stays on the ice and is not disqualified. And now back to the tuck and roll team with Jim Schneider about to throw. Very light touch. Again, he's trying not to move the red stones out of the house, but yet add more to their scoring potential with this stone and maybe another blocker attempt. And here you see the stone is being manipulated so it does get past that line. And once it does, it's in a great position to block any future stones from going in that direction. So we'll go back to the Beaver Tail boys. Their captain and skip, Matthew Sarek, lining up this next throw. And that'll come from Daniel Russell, the second, his first stone. A little bit more finesse than the previous ones that were trying to knock stones out of the way. He's looking to aim this stone in a perfect direction. And he follows it nearly all the way down the sheet. And it does hit one of the red stones, but then goes out the back, so it kind of grouped the red stones together. Not what he was trying to do, I'm sure. We then go back to the tuck and roll team for their next throw, and that will be the first throw by Kyle Markham in this end. They already have a blocker in front of the house, so this is an attempt to put another stone in the scoring position, and it looks like it will go out the back, and it does, just barely, with a little help from Matthew Sarek, the skip, by sweeping once it got past the button line That's the center of the ring. Once it gets past that very center, then the opposing team can use their broom to try to ease that stone out the back and make it not a scoring potential. Here's the next stone by Sean Perry, the third. And that stone also misses and goes out the back, so still 2 stones in the house and 1 blocker. And this time John Epping is asking for another blocker in front of all 3, and let's see if they can do it. The fans that are beyond that glass are other curlers in this tournament. So here is Kyle Markham's second throw in the second end or game. There could be up to 8 games in this championship round. Trying to get that stone a little bit farther, and it won't pass the hog line, so that stone gets taken out of play. It won't be a blocker, and it'll be moved to the back line. So now an opportunity for the Beaver Tail boys to do some damage to these points that are out there on the house for the red team, tuck and roll. And this will be Sean Perry again. He'll be looking to knock a couple of those red stones out of the house. And he's watching the line all the way down, and unfortunately it stayed to the left of those stones, so they stay in play. Not much they can do sweeping to get that stone to turn in that direction this time. Sometimes they have that capability to make the stone curl, which is why the game is called curling. So now the skip, John Epping, will have his first throw of the second end. The red team leading 2-0 so far, with 4 stones to go. And here we see John's throw. The stone coming closer and closer to the house, away from the guard. And this one looks like it too will go out the back. So that will be no points scored for the red team. And we go back to the first stone for the Beaver Tail boys. Skip Matthew Sarek. He's there now with Sean Perry, looking for the right strategy in how to get around these stones that are out front and on the house. And I've been calling the stone out front a blocker. I know that drives some people who are familiar with the game crazy because it's called a guard, and I'll try to remember that. So Matthew Sarek, the skip and captain. Now peering down the sheet, and here is his throw. Early release. Which I think means a lighter touch. I'll find out, but that's just the patterns that I'm seeing so far. And this stone is going far to the left, hoping to curl into the house and closer to the center. And it's hard to tell from this direction. We'll take a look at the camera on the side, and it looks like it could be in play. So the last stone for the tuck and roll team being delivered by John Epping would be the only chance for them to remove any stones and or place another stone into scoring position before the Beaver Tail boys throw their hammer, the last stone, which will decide just about everything. The second stone for John Epping, coming towards the yellow stone for the Beavertail boys, and the Reds now have 3 stones in play for a point with 1 stone left. The hammer, as it's called, and this is the most important stone of the entire game or end, and it will be delivered by their captain, Ian Trimble, the sweeper, helping remove any ice crystals from the bottom of the stone. This is the most important stone of this end because already trailing 2-0, the yellow team needs to score and or eliminate points that are now in play in the house for the red team. So here's the final stone, the hammer, coming down. And it's coming in hard and fast. It does knock away 1 red stone, but leaves 2 in the house. Maybe 3. So again, the red team moves further ahead after a nice end for the red team. We'll be right back. So as we thought, the red team, Tuck and Roll, is now leading with 3 more points in the second end, 5-0. And here's in the third end, the first throw for Mel Schenka for Tuck and Roll. Once again, they're first, and Beavertail boys will throw the hammer, the last stone, after this round, at the end of this end. And the first stone is coming up as a guard. See, I remembered this time. A guard, not a blocker, a guard. And that is a typical strategy for the team that throws the first stone. And by tournament rules, that stone has to stay there for 5 throws before it can be moved. And here then is the first stone for Ian Trimble of the Beavertail boys. Lots of sweeping by Sean Perry and Daniel Russell, hoping to turn or curl that stone in from where it was headed, at least into, and three sweepers there, trying to get that stone into the house, and they do inside the 4-foot ring. John Epping steps up right away with a target to move that stone out of the way, and this will be the second throw for Mel Schenka. Mel taking her time this time to get everything lined up. Usually has an early release, and she does again with a little bit of a curl on the stone. Jim Schneider trying to manipulate it more. Pretty heavy stone coming in, and it will hit the yellow stone, knock it out, and her stone also hits the end or side, which makes it disqualified for any part of the play. And now we go to the Beavertail boys for Ian Trimble. His second stone of this end. Nice light touch. Not much spin on the stone. Seems to be a good direction for what they need. Pretty much an open house. Just to go around that blocker is not that hard. And that stone will pass outside in the back and become disqualified. Now we go back to Jim Schneider, the second for Tuck and Roll. Again, Tuck and Roll, the red team, leading 5-0 after 2 ends, 2 games so far. Potential for 8 in this championship tournament at Windy City Curling in Villa Park, Illinois. Release the Stone by Jim Schneider. Kyle Markham doing a little sweeping. Not much, but a little. And it looks like it will rest within the house. Open for manipulation by the Beaver Tail boys. You notice the guard is still there. Not really a nuisance or a problem for any of these curlers. They're pretty familiar with how to throw and how to get around that guard. Next throw is up by Daniel Russell, his first of this end. And looks like he's going after the red stone. And misses, just barely misses to the right. So that red stone stays there. This gives an opportunity, as you can see, John Epping asking for the stone from Jim Schneider to rest in front of the one they already have in the house. This will be the second throw by Jim. And he'll be looking to guard his own stone inside the house if he can. He turned away quickly. I'm not sure if he was happy or unhappy, but it looks like it's going to be a good throw. Nice touch so far. And it barely makes inside the 12-foot ring of the house. It is separated from the stone behind it. So there's a chance for the Beaver Tail boys to do some damage to those two stones with the right throw. That'll be the job of Daniel Russell, the second, to try to change the status of the stones inside the house for the red team. And he's thrown a heavy stone, so he's got a lot of speed on it, and they're letting it go without any sweeping. And it does hit one of the red stones, but then goes off the side rail. That'll not change the number of stones inside the house, just moves them, makes them more able to be manipulated by future stones by the yellow team. John Epping from Tuck and Roll now pointing out for Kyle Markham where he wants the stone. So far it's on track. A little bit more speed being requested by the brushing of Jim Schneider. A little bit more, a little bit more. We want to get it as close as possible to the stone they have already in the house. And it's barely in the 12-foot ring. So again, separated from the stone there you see in the white ring. And right away, Matthew Sarek, the skip for the Beaver Tail boys, knows exactly where he wants this stone, and he'll be asking his teammate Sean Perry, the third, to throw his first stone down in this, the third end. Already with a 5-0 lead for the red team on Tuck and Roll. And here comes the yellow stone. Looks like it will knock away the red stone, and it is a great spot for a point for the yellow team. John Epping now pointing out for Kyle Markham, the third, where he wants his throw. And here it comes from Kyle. Very late release. Trying to get extra accuracy on there. Mel Schenka doing all the sweeping now. Jim helps, trying to get more and more speed out of it. And it becomes a guard for the red team, having come up short of the house. And Matthew Sarek wants the stone in the house from Sean Perry, and he's trying to figure out where he wants the stone to be placed. A little bit more strategy going across the sheet here from end to end. Sean Perry doing his typical arm length guide for the stone before he throws. And it's away. Lots of sweeping there by both Ian and Daniel. The stone does come in and hits and moves away one of the two red stones. Still left inside the 12-foot ring is one more red, but the yellow stone is now in a better position with guards up front. And this will be the job of John Epping, the captain, to now move those guards and maybe actually use one of the guards to remove the yellow stone inside the house. And we'll see what his strategy is. John Epping taking his time. Right up to the hog line holding the stone, so he's looking for extra accuracy. Real heavy, looking to manipulate the stones quite a bit. And he does move one of the guards away and knocks two stones out of play. With still a guard up front, one on the side, and two within the house, the yellow being closest to the center button. Matthew Serick, the skip, talking over the strategy with Sean Perry, who will leave his broom on the ice for a target as the skip moves down to the other end to get his first stone of this, the third end. The yellow team, being Beaver Tail Boys, down 5-0 after two completed ends. Now looking to break into the scoring in this, the third end of 8 potential in this championship round at Windy City Curling in Villa Park, Illinois. Here's Matthew Serick's throw. Very light touch, actually medium touch. Going in the direction of the house on the right side. And that will be in a scoring position unless it goes out, and it doesn't go out. It stays within, closer to the button than the outside red stone, but plenty of room if they can knock the yellow stone, that being they, meaning Tuck and Roll, can knock the yellow stone out of the way and leave their stone within that spot. That'll mean that the yellow team, Beaver Tail Boys, will need to move it if they can. But let's see what, we're getting ahead of ourselves. Let's see what John Epping is going to do on his second and last stone here in the third end. Again, very specific aiming by the skip, John Epping. Brushing by Jim Schneider. Looking to get a head-on hit of that yellow stone, and it barely touches it. So it's going to leave a point there, uncontested, 2 points at this point for the yellow team because they have two closer to the button and none in play other than the one outside of the two stones for the yellow team. So the yellow team, Beaver Tail Boys, in great position because they have one stone left, the hammer, and room to place that inside the house without much trouble. That'll be the job of Matt Serick, the skip for Beaver Tail Boys, and it looks like they will be able to get a few points back after being down by 5-0, and a very light touch on the last throw of the hammer coming down the ice. It appears to be a good line going directly at the target set by Sean Perry. A little bit more manipulation going on there to get it inside the house, and they'll do that. And it comes to rest within the 4-foot ring. So that will give the Beaver Tail boys several points in the end of the third end. And we will come right back. Back now for the fourth end of this championship game between Tuck and Roll and Beaver Tail boys. And Tuck and Roll is ahead by 5-3 after Beaver Tail boys just scored 3 points in the third end. And now they'll start the fourth end with the first throw by Ian Tremble. Typically they throw the first stone as a guard and will place it, if they can, in front of the house beyond that line that they're trying to make sure it gets beyond, and it just barely does with their help. 3 sweepers were able to take that stone into play beyond that line called the hog line, and that makes it eligible for play going forward. So the first throw now for Mel Schenka from Tuck and Roll. Again, a very early release. That's her style, that's her technique. And not much strategy here, kind of a clean throw all the way to the house. Guard not much of a factor. Hoping to place the stone within the right space, and a big high broom from 2 of her teammates, one from John, one from Jim, back at Mel for a great throw. So the second throw now for Ian Tremble. Their team trailing 5-3, but they reduced the deficit quite a bit last end with 3 points to none for the red team. But they still trail by 2. And here's the second throw by Ian Tremble. Lots of sweeping going forward. They want a nice heavy stone coming down to knock that red one out of the way. And unfortunately, it just misses to the right. So no change for the stone for the red team. John Epping looking for a throw to land in front of the current red stone in the house. And that'll be the job of Mel Schenka. Her second and final throw in this, the fourth end of potentially 8 ends for this championship at Windy City Curling in Villa Park, Illinois, just west of Chicago. And here's Mel's throw. Nice light touch. She's hoping to place it right in front of the red stone, already nearly in the button on the opposite side, just past it a little bit. Looks like the line is relatively good, but it does make contact with the stone, moves it just a little bit, but not out of the house, in good position. Next up will be Daniel Russell for the Beaver Tail boys. Daniel now with his first throw in the fourth end. Sweepers Ian Tremble and Sean Perry, both with their broom on the ice. And it appears that the yellow stone will go right down the middle, but makes enough contact, not enough to move the red stone out of the 12-foot ring or house. So still 2 red stones inside the house for the first throw in the fourth end by Jim Schneider. Jim now looking to place more stones in play for the red team, Tuck and Roll. This looks like it's going to hit the block or the guard, and it does. It actually moves the guard out of the way, and that's okay because 5 stones have been thrown. Normally that guard must stay for 5 stones, and as you can see, there's already 5 out there, so it's okay to hit that guard. Not sure of that rule, why it exists, but that's the rule. So here's the next throw by Daniel Russell from Beaver Tail Boys. He's going far to the right, it seems. Sean Perry working hard to curl that stone away from the yellow guard that's already there, and he did accomplish that. And they're hoping to move it onto the house, but it comes up just short. So those two yellow stones are not a factor right now, it would seem. For the red team, they already have two stones in the house and one guard up front. So Jim Schneider will come with his throw. Another light touch, early release by Jim. Not much power into that stone, but they're asking for more speed with their brushing. And it may be that that stone is going to skip by the guard and come into play without moving that red stone too far. Let's see if they accomplish that. And it appears they do. So there are now three stones in the house for the red team, tuck and roll, and a guard up front. So Matthew Sarek, the skip for Beaver Tail Boys, is looking for a stone into the house. There is room to be much closer to the center button, the white 1 foot circle in the very middle of that target system called the house. Nice light touch by Sean Perry. And his stone is coming nearly down the middle of the ice, right on the center line, moving just a little bit towards the left, and it would appear pretty close to the 4 foot circle, the blue circle that you see. John Epping is looking for a stone to hit the guard, it would appear. He's putting a target right on the guard, looking for a stone from Kyle Markham to move that guard into the house. Lots of strategy going on here. And the stone, I believe, hit on where they needed it. Because John Epping gave him the high sign, meaning thank you, that was what we were looking for. Now Sean Perry looking down the sheet for what his strategy should be for this stone in the fourth end. His team trailing 5-3. And here is Sean Perry's throw. No sweeping yet. Pretty heavy, looking to move some stone, it would appear. And that it does. One red goes out. One red stays inside, closest to the button. Two yellows stay in the house, and I believe one more red in the house. So a lot going on here. The second stone by Kyle Markham. Nice light touch, aiming very specifically at one spot on the sheet, giving a little extra. And there it hits the guard stone to move it inside the house and stay in a great spot. So that's helpful. Still a guard up front. It would appear that the one red stone by tuck and roll is the point stone at this point in the end. but I'm not sure that it's going to stay there long. If they can touch it, they can easily move, they meaning the Beaver Tail boys, they can easily move that stone out of the way, but they need to keep one close to the button, close to the center. And what they're looking at here now is how to accomplish that. So Sean Perry, the number 3 on the Beaver Tail boys, will leave the target for his skip, Matthew Sarich. Still trailing 5-3, but in this fourth end, lots of different things can happen. Strong throw going down the ice. And it is aiming at those 2 red stones. It will knock the closest red stone out, but yet is lost to the end or the side rail. So right now the closest stone is the yellow stone, and that's where Kyle Markham is leaving a target for John Epping, going down to the opposite end. Worth noting that the red team has the hammer this time, so they'll be able to decide the outcome with the final stone, or have an opportunity for it. So here's the first of the 2 stones by John Epping. Jim Schneider giving it more speed, rushing ahead of it. Goes just to the right of the guard, and at the yellow stone it moves it out and keeps itself within the house. So a great throw to remove a yellow stone. It would appear the strategy now for the Beaver Tail boys is to put a stone in the house closest to the button and hope for the best. There's not enough guard up front to really cause a problem for the next stone after theirs, which is the hammer stone, the most important in any of the ends. So a lot of thought is going into this stone now. The last for the Beaver Tail boys in the fourth end of this championship game at Windy City Curling in Villa Park, Illinois, about 18 to 20 miles straight west of downtown Chicago. There are 3 other curling clubs in the Chicagoland or northern Illinois area. 2 in the north suburbs and 1 a little bit farther west of Chicago than the suburban area. Lots of activity here all throughout the week at Windy City Curling, with training sessions, amateur sessions, pro sessions, tournaments. Just about every day of the week there's people on these sheets. So here is now Matthew Serich's throw to try to manipulate this end in their advantage. Pretty much down the center line. He hits the guard, and that will leave stones in the house in scoring position for the red team with 1 more stone, the hammer. So great position for John Epping, the captain of Tuck and Roll. Just 1 stone left. They're ahead by 5-3 and already 3 in scoring position. If he can place this in scoring position, they'll get 4 points and take a commanding lead in this championship curling event here in the fourth end. John looking confident after he released the stone. Lots of experience with John. And this stone looks like it will end up in a scoring position. So that is 4 points for the red team, and they take a larger lead now, getting back the 3 points from the previous end scored by Beaver Tail Boys, and now lead 9-3. Starting the fifth end, the tuck and roll team will be first with the throw, leading by a score of 9-3 in this fifth end of 8 potential at Windy City Curling in Villa Park, Illinois, and the first throw by Mel Schenka. Sweeping by Jim Schneider and Kyle Marcus. Looking to set up a blocker in front of the house, and that is accomplished. So although the scoreboard reads 5-3, it's actually 9-3. Next up will be the first or lead Ian Trimble for the Beaver Tail Boys, looking to reduce their deficit. Sean Perry and Daniel Russell doing the sweeping. Coming closer now, and will barely touch the red stone, still leaving it out of the house. So now the second throw. For Mel Schenka. Early release again, just outside of the house on her end of the sheet. No sweeping being done right now. They like the speed, they like the direction. And it will go around the 2 guards per se and come to rest inside the house. A little bit of curling going on there, and it'll stop at the 12-foot ring, fully inside the 12-foot ring. There you see the actual score, 9-3. Here in the fifth end of a possible 8-end championship game at Windy City Curling. Now Ian Trimble with his throw. Certainly he'll be looking to knock the red stone just thrown by Mel Schenka away from the house, and it may just come up short of doing that. Not much change there. It still looks like the red stone is in the point position. John Epping calling for the next stone to be thrown by Jim Schneider for tuck and roll. Mel Schenka doing the sweeping to keep the speed up to knock the yellow stone out. And in fact it hit both the red stone then the yellow stone, moves the red stone out of the way, but takes the replaced position of a point for the red team tuck and roll. Now we'll get a throw from Daniel Russell, second for the Beaver Tail Boys. And his release was a very light touch stone. Looking to place the stone, I think, instead of knocking another stone out. And you see Daniel following his stone all the way down. And in fact, he did place the stone inside the 4-foot circle in a better position than any other stone near the house or in the house. So a good throw. He's happy, as you saw his smile on his face. John Epping now picking which area to throw the next stone for Jim Schneider. Jim coming up now with his release. The direction is good. Melishenka trying to give it a little bit more speed to hit that blocker yellow stone or come in position with it. And then John Epping, after the deflection of his own team's stone, brings it a little bit closer into the 12-foot range. But still the yellow stone behind where he was sweeping is in the point position. Good position for the Beaver Tail boys right now with plenty of stones in front of it. Their own and one of the tuck and roll stones blocking their point score stone. So a little bit of strategy here, not wanting to mess up what they've got. Daniel Russell with his second stone as the second for Beaver Tail boys. Taking a lot of time. And now he releases, going to the left side as we look and turn and look this way. A lot of speed on the stone. And it knocks the red stone out of the way. So still no change in where or which stone is the point stone, but it does make space on that side, which gives actually tuck and roll the opportunity to curl one in. And that's what Kyle Markham is attempting to do right now. Good speed so far, giving it a little bit more direction to try to turn it, and still no change in the position of the stones for points. No points will be awarded until the end of the end. End of the end. That's crazy. But fewer stones now available as we get into the thirds, with Sean Perry with his first stone here in the fifth end of this championship round between the Beaver Tail boys now throwing and Tuck and Roll, who right now have a commanding lead 9-3. Sean releases the stone. Daniel Russell and Ian Trimble doing the sweep. Looks like they also are trying to curl around that open space or block it, and that's what they do. They block that space. But right away John Epping looks to move his own stone closer, and that'll be the job of Kyle Markham to make contact with their own stone and move it closer to the center of the house so that they become in position to score points in this end. And in fact, that stone goes as a guard. Okay, so plenty of stones in front. I would not have to work out all the deflections and possibilities in this throw, but certainly the skip for Beaver Tail boys has an idea of what he wants, and he's motioning for the stone to come in at the line, I believe, of the button. So Sean Perry is looking for the right angle and the right touch to work his way around everything that's in front of the house. helps by deflecting one of the stones almost to the center. Great shot, great deflection. Good strategy to move now 2 stones in point position. And John Epping will have his first throw here in the 5th end. And it looks like he was pointing to the last stone thrown so that he can knock that out of the way and potentially deflect towards the button, the middle of the house target on that end. Let's see his strategy now. John goes right up to that hog line with his hand on the handle. Nice, hard, strong throw. Going directly at the yellow, and it misses. So that gives another advantage to the Beaver tail boys. They'll have a throw now where they can cause more mess and shenanigans to score points. They're down 9-3 here in the 5th end. Looks like Matthew Sarek, the skip for Beaver tail boys, have a plan. So let's see what they're up to. No attempt to manipulate the stone yet. Seems to be going in the direction that they want, towards the left side. Getting anxious about its position, and it looks like it's going to curl in behind everything and in a great spot to make sure that they get points this end. Still, though, is another throw, and as you can see, John Epping is taking a pause here and trying to figure out what's the best method to reduce how many points are here. Kyle Marcus taking the position that John normally has in any throw, holding up a target at the first stone that he can see and maybe trying to knock that stone and others out of the way. Let's see how it works. Unfortunately, we're running short on time, so that's all we can show you today. The Tuck and Roll team won their championship, and we will switch now to the award ceremony inside the Warm Room at Windy City Curling Club.
In the A event, all the way from Toronto at the Royal Canadian Curling Club, hot damn, it's the Beaver Tail Boys. That's the winners.
Got it, boys. Got it.
You're done with it. And a combined team from Leaside, Evergreen, and Charlotte Curling Clubs. Give it up for your inaugural Drag Effect champions, Tuck and Roll.
Thank you. I'll try not to make your cry tonight or today. Again, I just want to thank Eric and the organizing committee for everything they've done. All volunteers, the ice makers. This has truly been an awesome spiel, and and I can't wear spiel. Is it spiel or spiel? I don't know. But congratulations to the other Toronto team, the Beaver Tails, for doing so well. And to all the event winners. And I gotta give a big thanks to my team, because they crushed it this weekend. So safe travels and hopefully see you again next week.
All right, real quick, this is by no means goodbye. There's food, there's drinks. Please stick around. Our house is still your house. One more time, tuck and roll, everyone. Congrats.
There you have it. The Drag Bonspiel at the Windy City Curling Club is complete. Congratulations to all the curlers who competed. If you want to find out more about Windy City Curling, watch for all the contact information on the screen and be sure to check out the club. I'm Al Stash in Villa Park, Illinois for the Villa Park Sports Network. Thank you for watching.